Window here, I'm looking at a Sen climbing gym, some beautiful apartments, cranes in the air. None of that was possible really before the EDDC, and that was a great template for taking concentrated capital and injecting it into a place. The Criz takes this to a whole nother level. So we're very forward. I'm thrilled just to be a part of this, and thrilled that Mr. Polito here is able to take the reins here as the executive director of this new authority. But we are taking this in many ways to the next level, we hope, through the Criz Authority. And it's because of some very smart legislation that was passed, some very strategic thinking, and we're at the precipice now as a community to, we hope, drive some major development.
All right, let's talk about how Erie got the Criz, because, again, to talk to Senator Laughlin and some of the other folks, it's been a long time coming. In fact, wasn't it a program of the Corbett administration that then kind of was put on hold during the Wolf administration, right?
Well,
do I have a little bit of that?
Well, let me give you my sort of layman understanding of this, because it goes even back way before my time. But you're absolutely correct. This goes back to, I believe it was the Corbett administration and something called a NIZ, which is a neighborhood improvement zone in Allentown, and it's had a couple of variations over the years. But
does the school district have this many acronyms too, or no?
Many more. Actually.
Oh, many more. Okay, yeah. This is like the Army or something.
Yeah. You're right to bring up Laughlin, because Senator Laughlin was like a voice in the wilderness there for about a decade, calling for this in the community. And during some of the previous administrations, there wasn't much of an appetite to have another Criz zone set up in the state. But he persevered, and to his credit, and then eventually the whole local delegation got on board. We have one now, and the authority was formed just a year ago now, in August of 24.
Okay, and tell us how that authority was made and what is its function.
So the authority is it's a municipal authority. So think of it, it's like the water authority or the sewer authority or many of those.
So it's not a state authority? Or is it?
It's a city authority.
It's a city authority.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a city authority. It has 9 members. They're appointed by our state senator, two of our state reps, Senator Representative Mirsky and Representative Harkins, and by the mayor. And they are just 9 individuals in the community that have been selected to serve on the authority. The authority then has certain powers, and what it has the ability to do is apply to the state, which we did a year ago, to designate a 130-acre district. That 130-acre district is on the map, and it's selected by tax real estate parcels. So it was quite a process of taking a look and doing that. We had to be very strategic, because what that district does is that the increases in tax over time, certain taxes, state and local taxes, go to the actual Criz authority in lieu of them going to Harrisburg or going to the city. And the reason for that is to really drive this economic development at a local level.
We'll go to the accountant to help us understand the basic math here. So basically, you did a survey of what taxes were paid in the Criz zone that was designated, right? Tell us how, go from there, from the baseline to what will happen next year or what have you.
That's really the only downside of the Criz, is that all the businesses in the zone have to file 2 reports, a local tax report and a state tax report, just notifying us in the state of what Criz eligible taxes were paid. And it includes things like sales tax, the state wage tax, the local income tax, those type of things. And
even if you're a tenant in a Criz zone that pays I'm thinking of like the shops here on
all the
shops had to do the form, right?
Yes, yeah.
They don't own the buildings, but they pay wage taxes.
Yeah, there was about 387, I think, individual entities that had to fill out these forms,
including us.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Yeah, and the Criz Authority actually was kind enough to hire an accounting firm that does this across the state, Fourscore LLC. Their president, Dean Azowski, has been great. So her and her team have been working with businesses to fill these forms out free of charge. And
you're just trying to find out right now, or you did find out, what amount of of taxes are going to Harrisburg at this baseline.
Correct, and the baseline is the 2024 taxes. So businesses had till June 15th to file that. We're in the process right now of certifying the local, what they call the increment or the baseline, and then the state is doing the same thing at the state level. So on October 15th, we'll have our official baseline for 2024. And then we'll go ahead and do it all over again next year. And when we do it next year, any increase above the baseline are funds that will come back to the Criz for economic development.
Wow. Now, why do we instantly think that we can generate millions and millions of dollars, even though it is incremental? You wouldn't think that, that much more money would be pumped into those Criz zones.
Well, it's really because of Erie Insurance, and our local delegation and representatives from Erie Insurance were really instrumental in getting the legislation changed so that the insurance premiums tax was included as a Criz eligible tax. And they're confident. They've gone through and done their reporting this year. They're confident that they're going to get us very close to the cap of $15 million for state income taxes next year. Wow.
So this is huge.
Yeah.
And the opportunity is huge. And when the authority was formed in August and the board members the members of the authority were named, we said, oh, okay, what do we do? Mm-hmm. We didn't have any money. We didn't have anyone engaged full time, but we had 6 weeks to turn around an application to the state. So it ended up being a 220-page application, and this was filled with tax modeling, with looking at projects, with trying to identify what sources and uses of capital would be over time. This was incredibly detailed, but we did it, and we had some great help in doing it. Kudos to McDonald Illig Law Firm. They really stepped up and did it on a handshake that they might get paid one day. I used to work there, which was nice, so I got to work with a lot of my old colleagues, and we got it together, and we got it approved. It was approved on December 30th. It had to be approved by the 31st, or by the 1st. So we got it approved. But we still didn't have anything, and we didn't have a paperclip. But this is such a great community, and the people in this community really they work towards a shared goal. I think in a great way. We were able to go to the Erie Community Foundation, and kudos to them. They made a loan to the authority to get started of $1.5 million.
Wow!
And that allowed us to really hit the ground running.
Because you had to hire people, you had to hire a consultant, you had to hire...
Well, we're lean. I mean, it's Brian. That's it.
But still, there was this functionality that needed to be ramped up immediately.
Well, we had to certify this baseline year. So if we didn't certify this baseline year, none of those dollars would be coming back to Erie in the way they are through the Criz Authority. So we had to get started right away. Brian was very busy in doing that. We also tried to make it as easy as humanly possible for the actual individuals, because the last thing anyone wants is another form to fill out. And the last thing the Criz Authority wants is to have people fill out another form. I mean, what a burden. But we hope that we made it as easy as possible. We hired professionals to try to take the burden off, to actually handle this for them. And we're really proud of that. But we couldn't have done those things without the Erie Community Foundation. So credit to them for really stepping up and allowing this to gain the momentum that it has.
When you think about those 300 plus individuals and individual entities, I mean, did they need a lot of hand-holding? Did they capture the vision right away? I mean, or did you have to do a little bit of marketing and communications?
Oh, yeah, we had to hit the streets quite often during that process. The window for filing opened in April. And Dina was up here at that time.
That's your consultant,
yes, from Fourscore. Her and her team went out and met businesses. I went out. We were fortunate early on to get a lot of people downtown, EDDC being one of them. Drew Whiting was very helpful in connecting us with businesses in the downtown area. So we had a lot of help in really reaching out and making those connections so we can have those conversations with the business owners. And it really did work. We were above 60% compliance, and that doesn't sound great, but Dina's telling us that is very, very good for our first year.
That's with
Very,
Yeah.
very good for the first year, and we captured
Okay.
all the major businesses in the zone. So there's some smaller ones that we're going to have to continue to work on, but we're very pleased with what we were able to accomplish in a couple months.
Wow. Before I go to my break, I want to ask about the range of these 130 acres, because they're not all contiguous. It isn't just a blob downtown. Can you give us a little bit of idea of the neighborhoods that are included in the Criz zone?
Certainly. So we took a look at it. So we had to be very strategic about land that contained businesses that would actually generate tax that the Criz Authority could capture, and then also land that had shovel-ready projects. Now, this map isn't set in stone forever. We can go to the state and we can ask to have it amended from time to time. So we did our best shot out of the gate, knowing nobody can really predict the future. Largely the Bayfront. We would call them the downtown district where we're sitting right now, up and down State Street, Lower State Street and Upper State Street, some sections of 12th Street, Parade Street. What else am I missing here, Brian?
Yeah,
With a zoo, right? Isn't the zoo part of this?
Well, it could be.
It could be.
Yes.
It could be. So we were able to put land in what's called placeholder status. And now that we look like we're going to have some stability with the zoo,
Yeah.
we'll have to go to the state and actually apply to have the zoo.
So you
included.
held some land in reserve.
Yes.
36 acres we have in reserve.
That is super smart, I tell you.
And also it allows us to find, there's going to be some diamonds in the rough that come up over
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next few years, which we hope, and then we could potentially invest in those projects and help
So,
get them off the ground.
and those are the key bullet points. Somebody that's generating some revenue, a
Right.
business that's generating revenue, and somebody that has a project that could be ready. So you think about 12th Street, you think about Iron Force Square. That project is in.
And it's got to be big
happening
bets.
now.
Really
Big
big,
bets.
bets. So think about this. If you do the math, $15 million a year over 30 years with 3% inflation tied to that,
Yeah.
or amortization, you're talking over $750 million. And that $15 million, that's just the state. There isn't necessarily a cap on the local. So the amount of revenue that's coming into this is phenomenal. It can also be leveraged, and that's some of the work that Brian's working on right now, is how do we leverage this out of the gate? You can do a financing where you can actually do a bond issuance, where you can borrow against the future revenue coming in. However you want to slice or dice it. But we can take that and leverage projects, leverage capital to get some of these really good projects that have been on the drawing boards for years off the ground now. And that's what we're trying to do. We don't have time to wait as a
Right.
community. We need to work as efficiently as possible. So credit to the group, to the people who have been involved. We did not sit around. We've made quite a bit of progress over the last year, and we're coming out guns a-blazing right now here into 2025 and into 2026.
We're talking to Criz here on the Joel Natale Show. Stay with us here. Our experts are here giving us the full explanation and where this looks like as we enter as we're in the third quarter of 2025 and 2026 is looming ahead. It's pretty exciting stuff. Stay with us. Matt Wachter, Brian Polito are here with us from the Erie City Revitalization and Improvement Zone. And let's get right back to it, guys, because I want to understand, like, you know, the what ifs, and actually these are beyond what ifs. These are projects that you guys are wrestling with right now. So let's talk about some of the asks and some of the projects that could be impacted by the Criz money.
So I can't share any details yet because we're still working through a lot of this. But right now, I have 9 projects that have requested funding from the Criz that we've started the review process. It totals almost $41 million in asks from the Criz and will result in $176 million worth of projects across the city. And this is a good mix of governmental entities, nonprofits, and for-profit entities. So
there's no limitations on who's doing the ask.
No.
Just more on what the project is.
Yeah.
Can you give us some ideas of, like, the types of things that are Criz ready, I guess?
Yeah, they're all construction projects. And a lot of them, I think, are things that have been talked about here for a number of years across the city that had gaps. And that's really where the Criz shines is with that. So we're but for money. So basically what we do is, they
Say that again, Brian.
But for money. So
okay. We have the idea, we have the drawings,
and
but for money.
We can't get all the financing we need or the equity. There's a gap in the funding, and that's where the Criz can come in and fill that gap and make that project a reality.
Matt, connect the dots between what this is like and what your work with the opportunity zones and what happened here downtown with the EDDC. Is there a lot of synergy? Like, if you had this tool in your toolbox back in 2017, would that have made things even easier?
It's not even a comparison. This is I don't think I'm going out on a limb and saying the most important economic development tool that the city of Erie could possibly have, the most powerful, the strongest. This is not a tax incentive. This isn't a small step up on a return for an investor. This is a way to get things done that simply haven't been able to get done before. In just a year, we've identified over $170 million in projects that probably wouldn't have happened without the Criz. Now there's a funding gap of $40 million. Mm-hmm. The Criz can do that. Now we need to get approvals at the Criz level and at the state level, and we're working to do that. These projects need to be stable. They need to be self-sustaining once they're out and operating. But this is a tool that can drive that. We don't have a capital issue right now as a community. We have a project issue. We need more projects that are developable. If that's a word. But that's really hard. And it takes a lot of work. It's not just a simple little presentation. This has to be really drilled down to all of the costs, to all of the parameters of development. And we're going through that process now to make sure that all those I's are dotted and T's are crossed so that we can get this type of approval. But this is a accelerant like we've never seen as a community. It needs to be done correctly, though.
Yeah.
And I think we're laying a really strong foundation right now at the Criz Authority. So credit to the people on the board, the people that are involved, and Brian now who's really running with this, because if we don't lay the right foundation, this could really be squandered. But if this is done correctly, it's like nothing we've ever seen before.
So when you're building the capital stack, and you and others help me understand this capital stack situation here, you're able to bring $5 for every dollar that the developer brings to the table. Now that money can come from conventional financing, right?
Certainly, and maybe Brian get into some of the parameters that we're thinking about as a board as we take a look at projects, because there's different type of developers, right? There's for-profit entities, there's nonprofits, there are public authorities, and we're not creating everything from scratch here. There's some really good test cases that have been out there in other
Well, there's
communities.
35 projects in Infinite Erie. but for not having
And they've
a lot
been-
of the cash for
and-
those, right?
And they've been wonderful. I'm on the board of Infinite Erie.
Okay.
And they've been a great organization to help support the Criz and bring some of these things here. But as we're trying to lay out this framework, we can build on some of the work where there's other Crizes, where there's other zones like this in the state, and see what really works well, see what the state will approve, and see what those parameters are. And that's really been Brian's world here for the last few months.
And that's where, again, we talk about the 5-to-1, but we don't want these developers to come to the Criz first, right? We want them to line up their borrowing, their debt, their equity, and then come to us with a gap. And the way we've been looking at funding these programs for private developers is the same as every other Criz across the state, where these projects are going to generate tax increment, right? And that's how we generate our funds. We're a little different because of Erie Insurance, but it gives us an objective way to value a project. So what we're doing with those projects are really estimating out what the increment is going to be, and then determining how much debt service that will support. So
So that's your real metric of ROI, is how much of a tax increment is
Yes,
is this project going to
So
generate?
I think we'll get into this in a
Well,
little
that's
bit.
where a nonprofit, if they're hiring 200 care workers, I'm just throwing this out there, but that's a lot of income tax.
Yeah, and with the nonprofits, we can get a little more creative. We can look at grants. So if the project doesn't generate enough increment, and we feel that this is something that's really needed in a community, we can make the rest of the gap a grant for that project.
Again, when you think about the history of Erie, and I mean, for it to come out of your mouth, Matt, that we don't have a capital problem, I've never heard that before.
But we have a project problem.
We have a project problem.
But I don't think of it as a problem. It's a real opportunity for us.
Right.
We take a look at. It's time to think big as a community. Some of our larger developers, be they public authorities or individuals, private organizations, really think big and think about those things and some of those amenities that are really hard to pencil out in a community like Erie.
Yeah.
I think we can get there. To Brian's point, the Criz is not a bank.
Right.
We're not competitive with lending institutions, anything like that. We're not solely a grant-making authority. We cannot fund operations. We cannot fund many things. We have some real parameters to work with.
We're talking more about the Criz after the news. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Talk Erie and the Joel and Natalie Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here, also on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review. Appreciate that. We are talking the Criz, a city revitalization and improvement zone, 130 acres of what could be to make the new Erie, the Renaissance moving forward here. We have the chairman of the Criz Authority, Matthew Wachter, the executive director, Brian Polito, are with us. All right, gentlemen, I'm math challenged, so I want you guys to weigh in on this thing. You were talking about that more than likely we will have $15 million every year to be able to invest on worthwhile projects within the Criz zone as you've designated. And they're not, by the way, they're not census tracts. They're actual right down to each taxed entity,
correct,
right?
Parcel
So
number.
each parcel number is how you drew this. But you also mentioned something about 40-something million in asks. You think you can bridge that gap and accommodate all that money that they're being asked for?
Yes, we've actually engaged Public Financial Management. They were the consultant that we had at the
PFM,
school district.
yeah.
And they do this work for the NIS and some of the other Criz authorities across the Commonwealth. We've engaged them. They've run some preliminary numbers. They feel that, with the funding we're going to get from Erie Insurance, that we could potentially fund a bond issue as large as $100 million in early 2026. So we're right now in the process of pulling all that together. We did hire a revenue study consultant to give us the estimate of what the revenue is going to be. That's going to be very important when we go out and shop the bonds, but we're marching along to do that at the end of the year, and the size is going to be really dependent on how many projects are ready and when they're going to need the money. So it may be, we may do 3 years of $30 million
Right.
Bond issues, or it may be some loans up front, a 50 and a 50.
Yeah.
So we're excited.
What are the rates? What would a bond float at, you think?
$100 million bond, I believe, will cost about $5 million a year, roughly.
So it's a 5%?
About 5.5 to
5 to
6.
6 is where.
Yeah.
What
All
we're
right, so it's
estimating.
almost like mortgage lending a little bit.
Yes.
Which is kind of high these days, but you feel like you can make the numbers work?
But if you think about it, so that's 1/3 of the total tax increment that we believe is going to be coming into the Criz in year one. That's it. The Criz is $15 million a year.
Yep.
Now that's just state. That's not including local. Is adjusted for inflation every year. So in year 30, we ran the tables. It's only like a 16th of the amount of capital that's coming into the Criz to pay that debt service.
Wow.
So this is a way to really supercharge things now. We can't wait. We need to move. We really, really need to move as a community. There's something like over $100 million that the EDDC has invested. I think, depending on who you ask, but there's something between, $200 to $400 million in follow-on investment that's come because of that. This is
I
in
keep
many
on
ways
hearing that
icing
we're
on the
knocking
cake.
on $1 billion in the last 7 years of city investment. I don't know if that's
I don't know
close.
if that's. I don't know how we even quantify that, but,
Right.
but what I can tell you is that the Criz Authority is going to really play a role in this, and it can help bring a lot of these things over the hump. Because you mentioned how challenging these projects are and how challenging it was for groups like the EDDC early on. This is that but-for capital. The EDDC would not have been able to generate the type of momentum that it had if it didn't have something called the Erie Downtown Equity Fund. And that was that initial $28 million of local capital that was used to springboard development. Think of the Criz. We essentially have an EDEF every year coming into this community, and that's something we can then multiply. This is incredibly exciting. I'm just so fortunate to be a part of it, and I think all the board members think that way.
What about, there was an element of the EDDC story, I wonder, that applies here as well, because you had the Artemis, the Boston money that came in, some of the social impact investing. As you think about, investing on Parade Street, are there not nationwide social impact investors that would say, I want a piece of that?
Well, there certainly are, and this is a way to really begin to start to attract them. Now, the Criz isn't the developer, so we're not the developer of a project. We're not
You're a
taking
funder.
lead. We are a funder, and it's truly that but-for capital. I mentioned it earlier. We're not a bank, so we're not competitive with the local financial institutions. We're that gap that they can't, that a project in Erie or in some of these, that in Erie just can't bridge because the financing can be, or the financials can be so challenging.
Right. Yeah. Again, I will always hear John Persinger say, "We're building a $55 million building," talking about the Ascend building across the street. It will pencil out as a in an appraisal at $9 million.
Exactly. That's
it's like
exactly
that's funny money. That makes no sense on any accountant's green sheet there, green spreadsheet. I'm just going to throw some things out. You can answer as much as you want, but we've been sitting on big dreams on the Bayfront, for example. I'm thinking about that marketplace that they want to do over at the GAF at the Sassafras Street Pier. I'm thinking about what the Scots want to do with another hotel and a retail area there. Is that what the Criz is really made for?
Yeah. Those are projects that the Criz is absolutely made for. And one of the things that we did, and Brian can talk about it, he's been leading the charge, is that we called a meeting. We were able to get in the room with Erie Events, with the Port Authority, with the Scots, people who are really working on projects on the waterfront. Sat down and explained to them what the Criz is, how this tool could potentially be used, and really beginning to kick off a master planning process of, hey, what are we looking at over the next few years? What are you going to make asks to the Criz? What would those be? How do we supercharge this as an authority? And that's been a wonderful process that Brian's been in the midst of.
Yeah, we partnered with Infinite Erie and Altair. They're really taking the lead on pulling this master plan together. Infinite Erie has a grant funding for technical assistance, so it's perfect for this type of project. We've been working with all three of those entities. We've just recently looped in the parking authority as well because there's going to be a parking needs. So we're trying to really map out over the next several years, what projects could get off the ground, how much they're going to be, and when they could feasibly start. And that'll give us kind of a roadmap on how much money we're going to need to borrow with our bond issue.
And Joel, you'll appreciate this. One of the taxes that is not included, so this is excluded, is real estate property tax. So if we're able to build up the waterfront, play a role in helping that be built up, some of the other areas of our community, that's going to hopefully shore up the local tax base.
No doubt.
That's for the city, for the county, for the school district. That's the goal in many ways, is to help us bring some great amenities to the community, but also shore that up, because that's a much broader conversation. But as a community, we certainly do need that.
I want you guys to share with my listeners that difference between getting that DCED grant, that RCAP grant, versus being able to keep the tax increment money in the community, because you can't have an RCAP if you're going to take it in a Criz zone, right? You can't use that RCAP money.
Generally,
right?
If you had it before, there's
it's
ways you can do
grandfathered
it,
in.
yeah.
Okay.
Those are always ones we just need to check with the state on. But
okay.
Yeah.
So like the zoo has a RCAP out there. I think $5 million or something like that.
Right.
So if the zoo becomes in the Criz, it won't be jeopardized.
So if they do an RCAP for a project with that funding and do a different project with our funding, that's an example of something that would more than likely work.
Gotcha.
But think about it from a decision-making level. This is now local. Now, RCAPs play a great role, and those are a tool that should continue to be used. It's a wonderful tool, and it's really spurred quite a bit in the community. And I hope that it continues to do so in the future, and it absolutely should. But the Criz Authority is now a local city authority, which has a very similar power. And it's done on the local level with local people who are in the weeds and understand what drives and moves things in the Erie community. That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
We don't need approval as part of a much larger budget process, which
competing
with Harrisburg, competing with Philadelphia and everything else.
Yeah, you're competing with now, they might have a really, really good presenter in York, and they get the $3 million RCAP, and we don't.
Now, it's not just the Criz Authority that approves things. So we do need to go to the state.
Okay.
And the state is very stringent, as they should be, because this is the use of public dollars. So you have to get approval from DCED, to the Department of Revenue, to the Department of Budget for any of these projects that the Criz Authority will one day support. And we're in the process of doing that now. So that's all good, and that's the way that it should be. This is public dollars. It is a very intensive process. That's one of the reasons why when we talked about our application process to the state, where we started to present potential projects, there was some very sophisticated tax modeling that had to go into that application to show them that, look, these are real projects that are going to generate real tax revenue. They are sustaining all of those things, because that's what they want to see.
And the state has been great to work with. We actually went down and met with Secretary Seiger from the DCED. They really very much want to be a partner with us to make these things happen. He hooked us up with what he calls the Criz Brain Trust in Harrisburg. So I have people I can reach out to, and as we go through this process, we're just working with them to ensure that whatever we take them as far as an application is going to be something they'll be favorable for.
So I want you guys to bring it home for that average city taxpayer. Okay, so I'm sitting up there in the 6th Ward, and gosh, I'm in Glenwood Hills. I'm paying $7,000 a year in taxes or more. And why do I care about this?
Because now there's a tool that's going to try to capture some of that local revenue. It's not going to be yours. Nothing's going to change for you. But try to capture it, keep it here in Erie, and try to build some more amenities in the community that otherwise, quite frankly, are just too tough to pencil out. And
as Matt mentioned, generating that real estate tax revenue is going to be key over the next couple of years. As we build this out, you think about $176 million worth of projects, how much that's going to add to the tax base here in the city of Erie.
Let me give you an analogous situation. So the EDDC, when it did its projects on North Park Row, those generated about $118,000. Those, when they started, only generated about $118,000 a year in real estate property taxes. Now, I don't know what the exact current number is. I'm a little dated nowadays. But it is generating something like $2 million a year in real estate.
Taxes?
In taxes, real estate property taxes. Now, they get the benefit of the 10-year LRTA, but when that expires, think about what that could be with the Criz. And what we can do as a community, and the type of revenue that we can help shore up our institutions.
So it won't be all on the landowner, the homeowner. All the burden of operating the city is not on the homeowner.
Exactly, and I think that's a great takeaway is, look, we're trying to take away all that burden on, like you said, the individual paying $6,000, $7,000 a year in property taxes, which I am. And you know what? It's difficult.
Let me bring it out to the county, right? Because this is a city revitalization, but as we say, and I say with all of my township buddies, as the city goes, so does the rest of the county, right? So there's a lot of support for the city to succeed. But if I'm a business owner, I own a shop in Mill Creek or in Harbor Creek or Fairview, and I'm just trying to keep workers. I'm just trying to grow my business incrementally and pay my taxes and go on my vacation or whatever. How does the Criz affect me, would you say?
Well, rising tides raise all ships, right? I mean, we can't think of this as a zero-sum game. If you're in Mill Creek, you need the city to prosper, just like the city needs Mill Creek to prosper, quite frankly. And the hope is that this can help do it, so that it's a healthy community that attracts more people to live in the community, in the general broader communody, and buys more T-shirts from you in that spot. And quite frankly, I don't think we need to make it any more complicated than that.
Right? Yeah. Well, again, if we're funding I'm thinking of the Bayfront again.
Right.
If we're funding assets where you have this amazing marketplace, and all of a sudden now you go from grass to a major destination for retail and multi-use.
Yeah, it's going to bring visitor dollars in. It's going to attract revenue, and most importantly, this is going to create jobs across the city, because we're activating property that is not active right now.
Wow. It's almost too good to be true.
Well, we'll see. I mean, look, devil's in the details. This is not easy. One of the things we mentioned early on in this interview was that we had a very strong foundation from the Community Foundation to be able to even get started. And we're very fortunate that we are, because not all Criz authorities had that type of support out of the gate. If we hadn't had it, we would not have made the progress remotely close to what we have now. It would have been all volunteer-led. Now we have Brian, who's working very diligently on this. We have a very committed group. We're able to bring in the right types of professionals. This is not easy work because it's very technical on the tax side and the modeling and the structuring of these things. Think about the complications of a master bayfront development plan. It's tricky, and that's okay. We're geared up to do it, and we're geared up to do very hard things. We're fortunate to be in a spot to actually do that.
I don't want to step on toes, but we are in a political environment. We're about to have a new administration at City Hall, whoever wins in the November election. How dependent is your work at the Criz Authority you're part of the public sector, and with an administration change like that,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is going to be crucial to the budget of the city of Erie. They have a pretty significant increase in their debt service coming to the tune of about $8 million in 2032, 2033. This will give us some time before that to hopefully generate some additional real estate tax revenue for their budget, which will help support any of those increases.
So this is kind of a catalytic event.
Yeah.
That could be a game changer on those 5-year projections.
Yeah,
It better be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But truly, I mean, this is our chance, and that's one of the reasons why we're working so diligently. We're trying to be as aggressive as humanly possible to try to help drive that.
I mean,
that
are you
fiscal
having
cliff's
to
coming.
have conversations with those at the 5th floor? I mean, how tuned in are they?
One of the mayoral candidates is on our board.
Oh,
The one
okay.
that won the Democratic nomination.
So she.
Yeah, and look,
working.
the current administration's been great. The incoming administration, by every notion, is going to be fantastic to work with.
Yes.
So hand in hand, meet as often as possible, and really, have a great partner there.
Yeah, because
Yes, they
you
get
do
it.
want synergy.
Yeah.
With the electeds,
If
don't you?
If we don't,
Yeah.
it's a failure. There's no
Okay.
reason not to.
Yeah, and they've been great. I've been working very closely with Chris Groner through
Yeah.
this. He's been a great partner. So
Chris has been
everybody's very
fantastic. He is a
supportive, yes.
Chris is a very talented guy, and he has been he's been a great ally in what we've been doing. He's a great sounding board. He's been throughout this entire process. What he's done alone with that revolving loan fund to support local businesses, that's great. That's one thing we haven't even talked about, is the potential for the Criz Authority to even help supercharge that, or to provide gas.
So there's
and
other
find it-
projects that
there-
you can do other than just building projects.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, I just got like 1 or 2 more minutes with Matt and with Brian. And again, you don't have to be specific, but I'm thinking about the major issues that I deal with on a day-to-day basis behind these microphones. We're talking about homelessness and housing. We're talking about childcare. We're talking about workforce. Now, again, there's a part of the Criz that does not allow for just housing alone, but you can do mixed use. Do you see that the Criz and these dollars could be part of the solution of these existential issues?
I think this is one I can share. One of the funding requests is for the schoolhouse apartments at my old office building.
Okay.
And that is a mixed-use project because the first floor is going to be services for the residents of that building. So that's something that more than likely you're going to see approved by the Criz board and by the state here in the next couple months.
Which is 50 units to help the
Yes.
homeless in the community.
That's epic. I mean, it really is.
Now, one of the things that the Criz can also do, so like you said, it cannot do pure housing, but it can do mixed-use developments. It can also finance equipment. It can do infrastructure improvements. So when I think of that, I think about, all right, how can we utilize this tool to help drive jobs here? Now, you need sites, so there's a lot of limitations on this, but trying to think creatively, okay, if we can help fund infrastructure, that's infrastructure that actually goes to help power buildings in the Criz. So it's a pretty long latitude there. What do we need? We have a really stressed grid in the community.
Sure
Is
do.
that something that we could potentially support?
Yeah.
We could help finance equipment for companies that, hey, if they can't quite get that capital that they needed to put in another 10 machines, which are going to allow them to hire 20 more people and put out more product. There's a lot of different things. We're just getting going. And we're limited by our creativity. We're limited by our ability as a community to really work together. It's not we're not operating at a deficit here. We're in a position that we haven't been in as a city in a long time.
Sounds like strong leadership is going to be a huge plus to this. wherever it's coming from, all the sectors, nonprofit, private, and public.
Yeah, without it, this would have been dead on arrival.
I appreciate it. Matthew Wachter, the chairman of the Criz Authority, and also Brian Polito, the executive director. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time and just unfolding this for us, because I think I think this will help our listeners go a long way to understanding what the what ifs are. I mean, it's a new day in Erie, PA, isn't it?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You got it. It is 5 minutes in front of 5 o'clock.